Millionaire discovers his former employee homeless and exposes a cruel truth about his wife. The city buzzed with life as Jack strode through San Francisco, the weight of his success wrapped around him like an expensive suit that had grown too tight. Every street he walked down whispered of stories he'd created, revolutionary apps connecting people to services they never knew they needed. But today, the sweet taste of achievement soured on his tongue, a haunting emptiness gnawing at his gut. Success had become a hollow crown, and as he turned down an alley, fate twisted the knife deeper. There, in a grimy corner, was Tommy, the once bright sparkle of potential he had known as an employee. Jack froze, shock coursing through him. Tommy was curled up under a thin blanket, clothes tattered, face drawn with the fatigue of a man who had fought long battles and lost. Memories rushed back, the way Tommy had fought for ideas that could have propelled their company into uncharted territory, only to be sidelined time and again during Jack's relentless pursuit of growth. Guilt washed over him, a tide that threatened to pull him under. "Tommy," Jack's voice cracked as he approached, trepidation twisting in his chest. Tommy's weary eyes lifted, recognition flickering only to be replaced by confusion, a reflection of Jack's own inner turmoil. "You wouldn't understand." The bitterness in his tone cut. Jack pressed for details, grappling with the reality that crushed around him like the nettles of despair. The truth spilled forth. Sarah, his wife, had been ruthless, using her influence to sabotage Tommy's career. She had viewed him as a threat, a reminder of Jack's past choices, and pulled the strings to ensure Tommy's fall from grace. The revelation struck like a lightning bolt, igniting Jack's insides with both anger and a desperate need for redemption. How could the woman he loved betray his trust so coldly? The foundations of their life together began to tremble, the tension unbearable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack stormed home, his thoughts racing, a cyclone of betrayal, guilt, and an anguish that threatened to consume him whole. In their home, filled with curated trophies of success, he confronted Sarah. Her nonchalance about Tommy's fate ignited his fury. "He lost everything!" Jack's voice echoed against the sterile walls, each trophy a reminder of accomplishments tainted by ethical decay. "Stop this madness!"
she snapped, dismissing his guilt. To Sarah, ambition justified their ruthless climb. And yet, faced with Tommy's reality, Jack felt the weight of their marriage shift beneath him, one forged on individualism and status, as opposed to the foundations of kindness and integrity. As he tried to offer Tommy a lifeline, an opportunity in his company, Sarah's fierce resistance left him hollow, its emptiness magnified by the cries of those hurt by their decisions. Her unwavering need for status clouded her judgment, pushing him to confront a truth that gnawed at the edges of his soul. What price had he paid for success? Teetering at the edge of chaos, Jack was torn between the life he'd built and the values he once cherished. Shadows loomed large around him, betrayal from within threatening to tear apart everything he once believed was just. In this pivotal moment, the future felt fractured at best. As the walls closed in, Jack stood on the precipice of a decision that could irrevocably transform his life. Would he choose to stand with the woman who had betrayed him, or rise with those like Tommy who'd suffered at the hands of their ambition? The air grew thick with uncertainty, and as he faced the truth of his choices, he wondered, was redemption even possible after betrayal? Jack paced the vast expanse of their living room, the walls adorned with accolades and photographs chronicling a life steeped in ambition. Each framed image served as a stark reminder of what he had achieved, but now they only fueled the doubt within. He fought to reconcile his perceived success with the unsettling realization of how that success had come at the cost of innocent lives. "Jack, you're overreacting." Sarah's voice broke into his thoughts, casual and dismissive as she flipped through a magazine, oblivious to his inner turmoil. "Overreacting?" he echoed, incredulity lacing his tone. "You've ruined a man's life, Sarah. How can you be so blind?" Her disinterest was palpable, frustration bubbling at the surface of her composed demeanor. "He was simply an underperformer. There's no room for dead weight in our world." That statement ignited a fire in Jack. He'd always prided himself on making tough decisions, but he had never considered himself heartless. Now, however, that distinction felt dangerously blurred. He had built a fortress of success only to realize it was erected on quicksand. He dropped into a chair, burying his head in his hands. He couldn't ignore that nagging voice whispering. Was he complicit? Just moments ago, Tommy's hollow eyes haunted him like a specter, begging for a flicker of hope. The thought of that young man, once brimming with dreams and potential, reduced now to mere survival, devastated him. How many others had faced similar fates in pursuit of profit and prestige? The monumental success he had earned felt tainted now, a trophy that mocked him. Gradually, clarity pierced through the fog.
He had been charged with leading a company, yet lived in the delusion that ambition alone justified his path. Those who worked for him, like Tommy, were not mere entries on balance sheets. They were the lifeblood of any enterprise. What good was success if bought with the anguish of others? He felt a surge of determination clawing through despair. Jack rose abruptly, a newfound resolve coursing through his veins. "I have to do something," he declared, startling Sarah, who blinked at him in bemusement. "Do what? Waste more time on lost causes?" she replied, her voice dripping with scorn. "Why not? Maybe it's time to reevaluate what I've built," he countered, recognizing that true leadership required moral courage, not just financial triumphs. He couldn't undo the damage done to Tommy, but he could begin to bridge the chasm created by apathy and ambition. He needed to restore humanity within his company. In the quiet of the early morning, Jack drafted a plan for his next steps. He would offer Tommy a position in a new initiative aimed at fostering innovation, an incubator for underappreciated talent that would challenge the norms Sarah had championed. He envisioned a space where ideas could flourish, unmarred by the suffocating grip of ruthless competition. The path ahead would be arduous. He anticipated resistance, not just from Sarah, but from his colleagues who thrived on cutthroat methods. That fear faded beneath a more compelling drive to create change that not only honored the workforce, but also reflected his true values. Looking out at the city, bustling with promise, he felt invigorated, an urgency ignited within him that he hadn't felt in years. Just then, his phone buzzed, pulling him from his reverie. An alert caught his eye. It was a message from Tommy. "Can we talk?" His heart raced, a mix of hope and dread. Jack stood on the brink of transformation, but was it too late for both of them? The air thickened with anticipation, a clear signal that the next pivotal confrontation loomed. Would Tommy be open to forgiveness? Jack swallowed hard, his path of redemption intertwining with his former employee's fate. With a deep breath, he stepped outside, determination igniting a fire within. The time had come to face not just his messy past, but the very real consequences his choices had wrought. As he glanced down the street, the future felt uncertain, yet thrillingly ripe for change. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as Jack walked through the bustling streets. Each step felt heavier than the last, his mind racing with the prospect of his meeting with Tommy. He pictured the young man's face, the despair in his eyes. This wasn't just a former employee. Tommy was a reflection of every moral compromise Jack had ever made. Today, he would confront that reflection. He entered a small cafe, its warmth inviting and its patrons immersed in their own worlds. Jack chose a corner table, its privacy shielding him from prying eyes.
He fidgeted with the coffee cup in his hands, each swirl stirring up a growing turmoil within. Could he truly help Tommy? Was redemption possible? As he waited, the enormity of what he was about to propose loomed like a mountain before him. The bell above the door chimed, jolting him from his thoughts. Tommy stepped in, his face gaunt but determined. When their eyes met, Jack felt a jolt of empathy mixed with trepidation. How could he explain the reasons behind the decisions that had led them here? "Hey, Tommy," Jack offered a tentative smile, but it faltered under the weight of the moment. "Jack," Tommy's voice cracked slightly, a mixture of vulnerability and barely contained anger. They exchanged awkward pleasantries, the distance between them palpable. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice steady despite the quaking in his gut. "I'm really sorry for everything that happened. You deserved better." Tommy crossed his arms, skepticism igniting in his gaze. "Better? I watched my life fall apart because of choices you made. I lost everything, Jack." "I know," Jack replied, earnestness spilling from him. "I've been thinking. I want to change how things are run. I'm starting a new initiative, a place where people like you can thrive. I want you to lead it." Surprise flickered across Tommy's face, quickly followed by disbelief. "You think that just because you're offering me a job, it fixes everything?
The damage is done, Jack. Jack leaned forward, his heart pounding. I know it doesn't fix everything, but I want to make changes, real changes. I've realized how wrong I've been, harboring only ambition as my compass. Why would I trust you? Tommy shot back, his voice simmering. You've only ever seen people as numbers. Where was your concern when I needed it? That's exactly why I need you, Tommy, desperation lacing his tone. I can't do this alone. If I'm going to reshape what I've built into something that matters, I need people who understand what's at stake. You've been through the system, Tommy. I'm asking you to help me build a new one. Tommy's expression softened slightly, but resolve remained etched in his features. And what makes you think I'm just going to step back into that world? It's not that easy. Jack's frustration ignited anew. I never said it would be, but being stuck in this cycle of corporate greed isn't the answer either. I want to create an environment where talent is recognized. People aren't discarded. I want this to matter, not just for the company, but for everyone involved. You can help me define that. Silence enveloped them as Tommy wrestled with the gravity of Jack's words. Inner conflict played across his face, and Jack sensed the shift. Hope mingled with hesitation. Let me show you, Jack pressed on, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Let's make this something we can be proud of. If I fail, we fail together, but at least we try to do something good.
Tommy nodded slowly, the flicker of possibility igniting. You think a few good intentions will justify the horror of what happened? You think I'm just going to follow you blindly? No, I won't ask you to. Jack fought to keep his tone level, knowing it was the moment that could turn the tide. But if you're willing to take a chance, I promise you I will be held accountable. Together, we can change this. As Tommy considered his words, the air thickened with unspoken possibilities. Jack's heart raced. This was more than just a new initiative. It was a chance for both of them to reclaim their futures. Then Tommy sighed heavily, tearing the moment apart. You're really asking me to trust you again? Fine. Let's talk details. But know this, Jack. If you slip back into old habits, I will break every ounce of faith I have in you. Jack felt the weight of Tommy's challenge galvanize him. He had a chance, and it was not just about rekindling his former employee's future, it was about his own resurrection. As they discussed the next steps, an electric stir of ambition coursed through him. But in the back of his mind, he knew that the road ahead would not only challenge his ideals, but also test the very fabric of his character. With Tommy's agreement hanging palpably in the air, Jack paused, needing to steady himself. The moment of truth had come, bringing with it the biting reality. This was not just the beginning of their partnership, but a confrontation of the man Jack had once been. What consequences awaited him if he failed to live up to the promises he had made today? With Tommy's tentative agreement echoing in his mind, Jack left the cafe, a mixture of revulsion and hope swirling within him. The sun had dipped further, the streets now drenched in a twilight hue, reflecting the transformation he was desperate to achieve. Their conversation replayed in his head, stitching together fragments of guilt, regret, but ultimately a fledgling optimism. Every step felt like a fractal of his past decisions. As he strolled past towering buildings, each representing the corporate empire he had built, he felt an urge to shrink them down, to redefine their meaning. No longer would he allow these landmarks to symbolize success merely dictated by profits and bottom lines. There had to be more, a greater purpose that could benefit more than just the shareholders lining their pockets. Jack fished his phone from his pocket. Scrolling through his contacts, he paused on names that once represented alliances, friendships, and power. Today, they felt like shackles. They were reminders of a time when he chased ambition alone, an unrelenting race devoid of humanity. He had spent too long navigating that corporate labyrinth without considering who he might trample in the process. It was time to connect with his true goals, not just to save himself or prove doubters wrong, but to be a voice for the people he had neglected.
Compelled by a sudden urgency, Jack thumbed a text to his assistant, Melissa. "Meet me in an hour. I need to discuss something important." The idea sprouted vividly in his mind. A retreat, a brainstorming session that could bring together employees who had been sidelined, a chance for them to voice their concerns and generate ideas. It would infiltrate the fabric of the company with transparency, shifting it from a fortress of elitism to a sanctuary for innovation and compassion. But as he headed home, doubt gnawed at his insides. Would his colleagues actually rally around a new mission? The risk of ridicule loomed large, whispers of disdain and skepticism taunting him. He paused outside his lavish downtown apartment, the structure a gleaming monument to his past mistakes,
a bitter reminder of hollow victories. Inside, the sterile grandeur felt oppressive, the walls closing in as he lifted a half-finished bottle of scotch from the bar in a moment of weakness. But instead of pouring himself a drink, he poured out his thoughts into a notebook, the pages absorbing his jumbled aspirations. As he scrawled furiously, a new realization dawned. He was capable of more than he had ever credited himself for. If swapping profits for purpose was to be his new mantra, then accountability had to permeate the culture he envisioned. He recalled a workshop he attended years ago, hosted by a famed corporate leadership coach. The core lesson centered on vulnerability as strength, pushing leaders to share failures to foster collaboration. Jack had dismissed the night as sentimental, but now it was a lifeline. Maybe it was time to present his own vulnerabilities openly. How could he instill change if he hid behind corporate shields? With a sudden wave of clarity, Jack decided to pitch a series of meetings aimed at openness and transparent communication within the organization. Overcoming his fears and allowing himself to be scrutinized would be difficult, but hiding would be worse. However, an unsettling voice interjected in the back of his mind. Did he even have the strength to yield to vulnerability? And what about the inevitable fallouts? Would these changes even last? The spectrum of doubt unnerved him. At that moment, the door spilled open and his wife, Claire, stepped in, her presence commanding yet cool. She dropped her bags and glanced at him, her dark eyes penetrating. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's on your mind?" Jack hesitated. He would have to face her, too, the very embodiment of the status quo he wished to dismantle. Could she be the ally he needed, or was she part of the old cycle he wanted to break? The uncertainty hovered between them like a storm cloud, ready to burst. "Just planning some changes," he said, a dangerous tremor in his voice. Claire raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on her features. "Changes? What kind?" Jack inhaled deeply, mind racing.
This was a pivotal moment, one that could either solidify his path or plunge him deeper into fear. "I'm thinking about reshaping the way we operate. It might involve some risk." Her smile was unyielding, laced with doubt. "Jack, you're not going to jeopardize everything we've built, are you?" The stakes escalated. He was standing at a precipice, and one misstep could set everything ablaze. The impact of his next words weighed heavily on him. "This time, it's not just about us. I want to change things for everyone involved." As the challenge lingered in the air, Jack sensed the shadows of doubt closing in again. A stark realization engulfed him. The past and future were colliding, each demanding their claim. Could he truly find a path through this maze of complexities, or would he fall victim to the same forces he once embodied? His heart raced as he prepared to confront both his wife and the ghosts of his past. This was a transition more daunting than he had ever imagined, and every fiber of his being trembled at the prospect of this reckoning. Would he gather the courage to embrace the changes ahead, or would history repeat itself, leaving him imprisoned in his own design? The answer loomed just beyond reach, testing the very core of his resolve. Jack paced his apartment as Claire's words echoed in his mind. The stark contrast of their ambitions hung heavy in the air, and the room felt smaller, stifling. He faced not just his wife, but the expectations, the life they'd constructed around familiar comforts and a shared ascent to wealth. But his vision of leadership had gained substance. It had morphed from a self-serving quest into a genuine drive for transformation. Staring at the notebook, the unrelenting need to pen an entirely new narrative surged through him. He ran a hand through his hair, grounding himself. It didn't matter how difficult this would be. He was standing at the edge of a metamorphosis. What if vulnerability could produce the change he craved? What if admitting his own mistakes could catalyze a shift in others? With renewed determination, he pushed through the mental fog. He needed a plan, a clear blueprint that could initiate discussions and foster a culture built on shared values. In the back of his mind, he could hear his assistant Melissa asking for clarity, knowing that an initiative like this required more than mere words. It demanded structure. "All right, let's do this," he whispered to himself, jotting down key concepts he wished to address in the meeting. Transparency, collaboration, respect. They were simple yet powerful words that carried weight, each one pressed against his conscience, demanding he embody the change he envisioned. But doubt crept in again. The thought of his colleagues' reaction sent a chill down his spine. What if they saw him as weak? What if they mocked his attempts to connect? The voices from the boardroom flooded back, memories of dismissive laughter reverberating in his ears.
Yet in the same breath, he recognized that this retreat would not just serve as a synergy generator, it would be his first step toward rebuilding who he was. He had to cling to that flame of possibility. As he organized his notes, a nagging thought bubbled to the surface. Was Claire truly the opponent he perceived her to be? She had supported him through battles, after all, but now, standing at odds with her ambitions felt like a treachery he wasn't prepared to face. He justified her skepticism as a protective instinct, honed over years of risking everything they had for progress. But risking everything also meant risking his identity, and maybe Claire could come to understand that. "Jack," Claire's voice broke through his reverie, bringing him back to the present. She stood framed in the doorway, an impassive expression on her face. "I need an answer." His heart thumped wildly, wrestling between the refuge of silence and the tumult of truth. "I can't keep building something that only serves us. There has to be more," he confessed. Her eyes widened, yet confusion marred her features. "We have a life that works, Jack. You're not thinking clearly," she protested, the corners of her mouth tightening as if trying to suppress a burgeoning panic. "Maybe it doesn't work for everyone. Maybe we're not listening." The conviction in his voice surprised him. It felt electric, imbued with the potential to fracture the monotony they'd settled for. Could it also fracture their bond? Claire shuffled slightly, her demeanor oscillating between agitation and concern. The flicker of vulnerability in her gaze gave him pause. What if she had bottled her fears just as he had? "Did you ever think about reaching out to those who don't have what we do? What it would mean to step into their shoes?" Jack ventured cautiously. As his words lingered, the pause that followed seemed like an eternity. Those shoes, what a profound realization they had been. Suddenly, the faces of former colleagues filtered into clarity, their struggles painted vividly against the backdrop of his own unchecked success. "What are you suggesting?" Claire finally asked, her tone more inquisitive than hostile. "I want to interview employees. I want their feedback and thoughts. I want to be held accountable," Jack asserted, grounding himself in his resolve. The wariness on her face played out as seconds stretched into minutes. "Jack, this isn't just a corporate shakeup. You could risk everything," she warned, but he sensed the tremor of curiosity nestled behind her skepticism. "Maybe that's exactly what I need to do," he replied, the rhythm of conviction gaining momentum in his chest. As the pivotal moment hung between them, parting the veil of their previously defined roles, Jack felt an electrifying conjunction of hope and anguish. The weight of the confrontation was palpable. It paved the way for a deeper exchange, one that could either collapse or elevate their fragile foundation.
But an empty hollowness crept in. If they were to reshape their lives and careers, could each withstand the fallout? Could they emerge stronger, or would this endeavor create irrevocable rifts? The air thickened with the unspoken question, heavy with unresolved tension. Jack realized that the walls he sought to tear down were as much personal as they were professional. Would he be willing to rebuild, not just the company, but the core of their relationship too? "You're right, it won't be easy," he murmured, uncertainty flickering again. What if this was merely the beginning of upheaval rather than the revolutionary change he envisioned? A new urgency surged within him. Tomorrow's meeting could unearth buried truths, and he prepared for the unknown. The moment of truth had arrived, but at what cost? Jack stood before the mirror, heart racing, grappling with the stark reflection of a man caught between ambition and authenticity. Tonight's meeting had taken on an ominous gravity. It was both a professional obligation and a personal trial. As he buttoned his shirt, he pondered Claire's warnings and the unsettling notion that their lives might splinter under the weight of his choices. He could hear the community buzz outside his apartment, life continuing in vivid color, while he felt trapped in shades of gray. His thoughts flipped like a coin, one side showing the promising transformation he dared to pursue, and the other reflecting a crippling fear of failure. What if he didn't have the answers they needed? The fundamental change he yearned for began to feel like a siren song, beautiful yet treacherous. One thing crossed his mind repeatedly. He had to commit to this journey of vulnerability. To shift the culture in his company, he first needed to deepen his understanding of the people within it. What did their daily realities look like? And more importantly, how could they be a part of creating the change he sought? He arrived at the office early, the hum of fluorescent lights echoing in the stillness. He took a deep breath before entering the conference room. This space had often represented power and control, but today it would become a platform for accountability. He arranged the chairs in a circle instead of their usual rigid arrangement. This was not a meeting to impose his will. It was a discussion he hoped would level the playing field. As colleagues trickled in, he noticed their hesitancy. Tony, a quiet analyst, cast a cautious glance around before taking a seat, while Jessica, who usually radiated confidence, appeared withdrawn. Jack felt the weight of their unvoiced questions. They were inferring that something was different. They could smell the change in the air and weren't sure how to react. "Thank you for being here this morning," Jack started, his voice firm but laced with an uncharacteristic tremor. "I want us to take some time to communicate openly about how we can shape our company's future together."
He gestured towards the whiteboard where he had written the words transparency, collaboration, growth. A palpable silence enveloped the room, leaving Jack exposed. He pressed on, inviting anyone to voice their thoughts. "Why the sudden shift, Jack?" Tony asked, a hint of skepticism in his tone. "What's really going on?" Jack took a moment, weighing his words carefully. "I've realized that I've been looking through a lens that only reflects success in terms of profit and position. I want to understand how that impacts you, your roles, your lives, your challenges." The moment hung heavy, the directness of his honesty startling everyone, including himself. No longer was he just a leader. He was an individual, one willing to risk his position for something genuine. As discussions unfolded, stories surfaced, of long hours and sacrifices, of feelings of being unheard and undervalued. Jack jotted down notes, each one a spark igniting his sense of responsibility. He was peeling back layers of indifference, and with each shared narrative, a deeper emotional connection was forged. "Jack, it's commendable you want to instigate change," Jessica said tentatively, "but how do we know it's not just lip service? You can't just rewrite the narrative without tangible action." Her words hung in the air, and their weight bore down on him. She was right. Ultimately, words wouldn't be enough. He had to translate this commitment into authentic behavior. "Let's start with action plans. I want to form focus groups," he proposed, feeling the adrenaline charge through him. "Let's get feedback directly and figure out where we can improve." Amidst murmurs of agreement, Jack could feel his resolve solidifying. This would be the foundation upon which they would build change together. Although every part of him remained wary of backlash, knowing some in the room preferred the status quo, he pressed through. He realized he was facing not just a group of employees, but also the shadows of his own doubts and ambitions. The room transformed. It was no longer just a conference room, but rather a sanctuary for raw, unpolished truths, both personal and professional. As the meeting wrapped, he felt a flicker of hope push through the apprehension. Jack was committed to listening and acting on their insights. Yet still, the gnawing tension of doubt lingered, gnashing its teeth in the recesses of his mind. The questions resurfaced. Would this initiative truly resonate, or would it serve as a scream over deeper issues yet unexplored? That night, as Jack lay in bed, a gnawing worry settled in, the need to confront the harsh reality that changes wouldn't come overnight. He wrestled with the implications of these discussions, realizing that he might uncover unwelcome truths that could unravel everything he thought he knew, both in the company and at home.
Yet deep down, another stirring emerged, one of resilience and determination, fueled by the stories of those who had entrusted him with their struggles. Tomorrow's journey would not be easy, but it would be rooted in authenticity. And as Jack fell asleep, one thought lingered unwaveringly. The time had come to face Claire and illuminate everything he had unearthed during the day. Tomorrow, he would confront the most profound change yet, his own beliefs about love, loyalty, and the ever-simmering tension between ambition and unity. Jack woke the next morning with the weight of the impending conversation with Claire looming over him. As he brewed his coffee, he wrestled with the uncertainty swirling in his mind. It wasn't just about his revelations from the meeting. It was also about the deep-seated feelings cascading through him, leading him toward potential confrontation with Claire. Where was their communication going wrong? Had ambition clouded their bond to a point of fracture? He sat down at the kitchen table, a stark contrast to the buzzing world outside, where the sun spilled light on everything it touched. As he sipped his coffee, Jack examined his reflection in the window. This time, his gaze held an edge of determination, but also the fear of what lay ahead. In the office, the feedback he sought felt immediate, as his team quickly rallied to shape the focus groups he had proposed. Ideas blossomed from the hesitant whispers of his colleagues. Jack facilitated each discussion, his heart leaping with every suggestion shared, every concern voiced. Their collective energy began to seize the moment, yet amidst the excitement, shadows of caution flickered in Jack's mind. How fragile was this newfound engagement? Would its authenticity withstand the test of deep-rooted professional habits? Throughout the day, Jack felt a growing urge to become more involved, not just in the superficial changes, but in the lives of his employees. They were a patchwork of dreams, burdens, and unspoken truths. This awareness ignited something within him, igniting a desire to bridge the gap between personal and professional life. His thoughts drifted back to Claire. Ever since his promotion, he had prioritized work over home, dimming the vibrancy of their once dynamic shared life. Had he started resembling the very corporate culture he now sought to dismantle? As a wave of introspection washed over him, he remembered the last time they'd connected meaningfully. His heart sank at the thought. At lunch, he joined his team in a cafeteria that buzzed with lively chatter. Jack observed how they interacted, their banter a revelation of camaraderie he hadn't known was possible in their previous, more formal structure. Yet a thread of guilt wove through him. He wasn't fully present with the people who mattered most. He was shrinking the personal stakes into mere statistics and performance reviews. "Hey, Jack," it was Jessica, her expression open but serious.
"You've been different lately. It feels like you're more human?" He shrugged, grappling with her unexpected observation. "I'm trying to be more aware of us all. I don't want this to be yet another corporate initiative. I mean it." She studied him closely. "Good. Just remember what happened the last time you tried to adapt. You need balance in every area of your life, including home." Her words struck deep, echoing in the corridors of his mind. Balance. That elusive word had slipped through the cracks of his ambition. Later in the day, as he prepared to leave for their evening meeting, Jack realized that he had to come clean to Claire, not with accusations, but with clarity. It was time to expose not just his vulnerabilities, but their shared distance. Would she recognize the man who had slipped away? As he walked toward the door, he felt an unsettling prickle of anxiety. What if pushing through this discomfort brought forth more than just a conversation? Would Claire feel the weight of his revelations, or would it create an even greater chasm between them? With a deep breath, he resolved that clarity was necessary. Tonight, he wouldn't just be confronting her about their relationship. He would be searching for the roots of their disconnect, vulnerabilities exposed, truths revealed. Arriving at Claire's favorite cafe, Jack's heart raced. He spotted her sitting at a corner table, immersed in a book, a serene expression gracing her face. The moment felt fragile, electric with potential fallout. What awaited him on the other side of this conversation was yet to be revealed. But no matter how painful it might be, Jack knew it was now or never. As he approached, the air thickened with possibilities, and for the first time he could feel the enormity of this moment, the unfolding tension wrapped around them both like a tight embrace, begging for release. Would he uncover truths that could shatter their carefully constructed lives, or would they blossom into something stronger? With each step, he questioned what truths lay buried not just between them, but within himself, ready to surface. Tonight's dialogue would redefine everything, but Jack was ready, or at least he hoped to be. Jack approached the table, his demeanor steadying despite the storm inside him. Claire hadn't noticed him yet, and he took a moment to simply observe her. She was lost in the pages of her book, her brow slightly furrowed, as if wrestling with the words within. He admired her focus, but the flicker of guilt nagged at him. It felt suffocating. This was a woman he loved, yet hadn't connected with in so long, and tonight had to be the turning point. "Hey," he said softly, breaking the silence, and watching her look up, her expression shifting from surprise to a warm smile that felt like home. "Jack, I didn't see you there," she said, her eyes flickering with that familiar spark. But as she settled back into her seat, he saw a flicker of something else, curiosity, perhaps even trepidation.
"How's your book?" he asked, attempting to trap the moment in small talk while the tension simmered beneath the surface. "It's good." She hesitated, then added, "But I think I need a change of pace." Jack nodded, feeling the words exchanged were a fragile bridge over the chasm that had formed. He dropped into the opposite chair, his stomach twisting with the weight of what was to come. Would she stay on the surface as he had done for the last few months, or would she dive deep with him tonight? "I've been meaning to talk to you," he began, not certain how to navigate these waters carefully crafted by avoidance. "About us. About everything." Claire's expression shifted, her attentive gaze sharpening. "Okay," she replied slowly, a mere whisper of acknowledgement that echoed his fear. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to reveal the apprehension that had occupied his mind lately. "I know I've been distant, and it's not just work. I've let our relationship take a backseat to my ambitions. I don't want to lose you, Claire."
The silence stretched between them, the cafe bustling around them. Jack could see the gears in Claire's mind turning. She opened her mouth, hesitated, then closed it again, her emotions restrained. He felt an overwhelming urge to press on, to shatter the distance growing like a barrier. "I've been reflecting," he continued, "on what's going wrong. I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I realize now that I've stopped being the partner you deserve." Claire's eyes were guarded now, and Jack's heart hammered against his ribcage. "You think I haven't noticed?" She finally spoke, her voice firm. "You've put your career ahead of our life together. It's not easy to ignore that. You think it's all on you?" The dam had broken. Her words were sharp, but honest. He respected that about her. Still, the confrontation sent a wave of fear coursing through him. It felt dangerous, yet so necessary. "No, it's not all on me," he admitted, his voice steadier than he felt. "But where do we go from here? How do we fix this?" Claire's gaze hardened slightly as she contemplated his question. "I don't think we can just gloss over it. There are deeper issues we haven't addressed." A tightening nod formed in Jack's chest. Like what?" he prompted, desperate for clarity, afraid yet hopeful. "Like the fact we hardly know each other anymore. You don't see me, Jack. I feel invisible." Her words struck him with unsettling truth. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to confront the rawness of her confession. She was right. He had become engulfed in his role, forgetting that Claire was both a partner and an individual in her own right. "That can't be true," he said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "I want to understand. Help me." Before she could respond, a shadow fell across their conversation. A tall figure stood nearby, shivering in the cool air, recognition surging through him.
It took a moment for Jack to understand the scene unraveling before him. It was Jason, a former employee, now disheveled and trembling. Claire turned, shock painting her face. Jack could only stare, his heart racing with unspeakable dread. What had led this brilliant man from job security to homelessness, and how was this connected to Claire? This wasn't merely his conversation with her, it was about to unveil truths Jack never expected to face. As Jason staggered closer, the emotional tension shifted palpably. Jack was unprepared for the world-altering revelations impending. How would he navigate the intersections laying before him? Would this connect the threads of his personal and professional lives, or unravel them completely? Jason's presence hung like a thick fog, heavy with unanswered questions. Jack's palms felt clammy against the smooth cafe table, the stark contrast of his previous conversation with Claire, now overshadowed by the reality standing before him. Jason looked at them with eyes filled with desperation and uncertainty, and Jack's stomach knotted, the fear of confrontation tingling at the back of his mind. "Jack, Claire," Jason stammered, his voice shaky but urgent. The familiar cadence of their interactions hung in the air, coated now with an unfamiliar tension. Jack glanced at Claire, whose expression shifted from shock to concern, but neither spoke, both allowing the silence to stretch as Jason searched their faces for something. Understanding? Pity? Perhaps even an ally in his unexpected plight. "What happened, Jason?" Jack's voice felt hollow, the weight of his own guilt suffocating him. He hadn't anticipated confronting his negligence toward his employees, or worse yet, how it would collide with the challenges he faced in his personal life. "I lost my job," he managed, tears pooling in his weary eyes. "The company cut back. I didn't have anywhere to go. I thought I could find something else, but it didn't work out, and now—" The words fell heavy. Jack's heart sank further. He could see Jason unraveling every moment he hesitated. The complexity of the situation spiraled as Jack wrestled with his crumbling sense of identity, not only as a partner to Claire, but as a leader in his professional domain. Claire reached out, her hand instinctively placed on Jason's, grounding him in that moment. "What can we do to help?" she asked softly, her compassion shining through the chaos. Jack watched, caught between admiration for her genuine nature and resentment for the failures he had allowed to pile up, to turn their lives into strangers, even in dire circumstances. Jason looked taken aback. His eyes darted from Jack to Claire, confusion underlying the gratitude. I don't know. Just having you here is something. I didn't expect to find anyone." As Jack listened, shame twisted within him.
Here was Jason, a man he had once respected and relied upon, reduced to this state. And Jack could only think of what he had prioritized: boardroom victories, accolades, and applause that felt paper-thin now. His existence in offices and meetings had blinded him to the very real human connections that mattered. "Is there anyone you can stay with?" Claire pressed, her voice steady and soothing, determined to not let Jason feel the weight of his distress alone. "No," Jason's voice cracked, revealing the depths of his despair. "I don't have anyone left." The air filled with a heavy silence as Jack struggled to reconcile the two worlds colliding before him. He could feel Claire's unwavering commitment to help, prompting him to probe deeper, to be forthright in understanding the repercussions of his neglect. "Where do you see yourself going from here, Jason?" Jack asked, trying to think beyond immediate solutions, searching for a way to reignite his own purpose. "I used to dream of starting my own business," Jason confessed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of lost dreams. I just never had the chance once things fell apart." Jack's mind whirred, a flicker of a plan ignited within him, intertwining his professional ambitions with a chance to rehabilitate the consequences of his negligence. "What if we collaborated? You could help me with my projects. I need someone I can trust." For a moment, Jason seemed taken aback, as if this small gesture could magically rectify the irretrievable damage of the past months. I'd like that," he finally replied, hope threading through the fissures of despair. Jack glanced at Claire, whose eyes sparkled with unspoken support. Seeing her in this light was a reminder of the boundless connection they had nearly let wither. Yet he was also aware that this was a band-aid over the deeper scars. He needed to confront his neglect with her, to ignite the resolve to build not only his professional life anew, but heal their relationship. The cafe buzzed around them, laughter and clinking dishes creating a stark contrast to their intense moment of decision-making. As Jack prepared to navigate the critical conversations ahead, he sensed the looming shadows of unresolved issues surrounding Claire, of truths that still needed to be voiced. "Jason, let's take it one step at a time," Jack nodded, determination seeping through his reservations. "I can't promise it'll be easy or straightforward, but I want to try." The path ahead lay unwritten, cloaked in uncertainty about their old partnership and the new opportunities unfurling in painfully familiar surroundings. Deep down, Jack recognized he was on the cusp of a transformative journey, not just to salvage Jason's career, but to reclaim the essence of who he was, a partner, a leader, and now, someone who would have to navigate both light and shadow.
Would he gain the moral clarity to confront the truth of his relationship with Claire before it was too late? Or was he opening another door that could lead them all astray? The weight of his next words grew heavier, a tether to the future he yearned to construct. Jack felt the air thicken with the weight of Jason's plight, yet in that moment he also sensed the possibility of something transformative. Here they were, three individuals bound by consequences, each standing at different crossroads. Instinctively he knew that this wasn't just about helping Jason forge a path back to stability. It was also an opportunity for him to redefine his narrative, and, crucially, to address the distance that had grown between him and Claire. As the cafe buzzed around them, Jack took a deep breath. "Jason, we'll set up a series of brainstorming sessions. I want to provide you with the resources to develop that business idea. We could combine your insights with the new initiatives I plan to launch for our company. It could foster not only innovation, but give you your voice back." A wave of incredulity crossed Jason's face, followed by cautious optimism. "I'd never imagined you'd consider me again after everything that happened, Jack." Jason's voice trembled, not just with hope, but disbelief. "That's exactly the point," Jack said firmly. "I've realized that people like you shouldn't just be discarded when the balance sheets shift. Together, we can create something authentic. Let's reshape this company into a place where stories like yours aren't lost." Claire's gaze flashed approval, yet Jack's pulse quickened again as he turned toward her. This was his moment to weave in not just professional resolve, but also the emotional threads that bound their lives together. But Jason's story wasn't just about a business. It's about recognizing the lives affected by decisions we make. Just as I need to restore value in my professional practices, I must also restore value in my personal life. His words coursed through the room, raw and vulnerable. "I need to address my distance with you, Claire. I can't keep avoiding what's right in front of me." Claire's expression shifted. A flicker of understanding widened her eyes. "Are you saying we should work on things together?" she asked softly. "Yes, I choose that. I understand now that our ambitions as individuals don't have to exist at the detriment of our partnership. We can foster the lives around us without sacrificing our own stability and connection."
Tension hummed in the air. Jack could feel the electric charge between them, sparking a chemistry that had dampened under the weight of ambition and neglect. He needed to be the one advocating for genuine engagement in their lives, as much as in their professional objectives. But the fear that he might misstep loomed large. Every word he confronted felt like a careful dance, one that might unravel if he lacked authenticity.
His heart raced as he kept his eyes fixed on Claire, needing her to see the sincerity radiating from him. Let's commit to rebuilding not only this company, but also to rebuilding ourselves. I should have reached out sooner. I can't expect you to trust that I've changed if I don't show you. Can we possibly help each other on this journey? Can we become allies again? Claire remained silent for what felt like an eternity as she absorbed his words. Jack offered a silent prayer that she would understand. He watched her expression soften, and for the first time in a long while, he saw a hint of hope flicker in her eyes. "Jack, I appreciate your honesty. It won't be easy for me either," she replied carefully, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "But if we both commit to being transparent and supportive, maybe we can find ourselves again." Strength surged through Jack. He could scarcely believe how profoundly this moment had evolved from despair to an opportunity for reconciliation. Not just with Claire, but through Jason and everyone else whose lives had crossed paths with his decisions, seeking a new trajectory where empathy underpinned ambition. "I truly believe we can do this, both together and individually," he said, a spark of exhilaration lighting his heart. "We can become part of each other's journeys again, starting with the focus groups I proposed. I want to shape an organization that values not just profits, but every person's contribution." As he finished, he sensed the creeping doubt ebbing, replaced by an overwhelming sense of shared purpose. It felt as if they had crossed a threshold together, one rife with challenges, but equally abundant in boundless potential. Jason's face lit up with renewed determination. "I'd love to take part, help drive those sessions. I have ideas that might resonate, and for the first time I feel like I belong again." "Then consider it done," Jack said, the declaration solidifying a new promise among them. The conversation trailed off, the cafe buzz continuing around them, but Jack felt like they were encapsulated in a bubble of new possibilities. The struggle ahead was inevitable, but they were no longer just individuals trapped within their respective pursuits. They were a triad moved by shared experiences, every step indicating a restoration of life, connection, and trust. Jack met Claire's gaze and saw not just her approval, but a shared resolve behind her eyes. They would face the future together, not with naive hope, but with the knowledge of their shared fallibility, bolstered by the promise of growth. As they stood to leave the cafe, ready to step into this renewed life, Jack felt a profound sense of clarity and accomplishment. It was the fulfillment of a long-awaited emotional transition, one not just about reclaiming business opportunities, but also about rekindling deep connections.
He knew they would need to navigate each burgeoning relationship carefully, but the foundation was there, built on authenticity and the promise of change. In that moment, he grasped the significance of all that had transpired. Jack had not only achieved a degree of professional transformation, but had simultaneously converged the paths of personal achievement and reconciliation. He had committed to viewing the world through the lens of humanity, setting forth the challenge of reshaping their lives into a narrative that resonated far beyond profit margins, the creation of a legacy built on purpose, integrity, and compassion. His heart soared with a resounding clarity. They would move forward together, united in their shared journey of growth, reinvention, and strength. Now, to the audience watching, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others can experience this transformative journey. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. And whatever you do, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let's spread the power of personal overcoming.